This week we read Acharei Kedoshim, two parshas together. Second parsha in Kedoshim begins with the famous words, Ish, imay va'aviv tiro, a man, his mother and his father must fear v'shabsaisi tishmeru, and you should keep Shabbos, you should keep Shabbos. Ani Hashem Elokeichem, I am Hashem, your God. Right away, Rashi explains over here. First of all, there's yira, there's fearing of the parents, there's being in awe of our parents, and there's also kibud, there's also honoring our parents, which we're told in Parshas Yisro during the Aseret Sadir. Two different categories. Rashi puts all the different actions. Feeding is in one category, not contradicting is a different category, sitting in a seat. But what is Shabbos doing in this pasuk? A man must fear his mother and his father, and he must keep Shabbos. What does one have to do with the other? Rashi brings the famous Chazal. If your father, Chas v'Shalom, will tell you, I want you to violate the Shabbos, you're not allowed to listen to him. Because why? Ani Hashem, I'm God. And you and your father are both obligated to fear me. So it can't be that you're going to listen to your father against me. So at first glance, it seems, because of the placement in the pasuk, at first it says fear your parents, but then it says but keep Shabbos. It's like a caveat. You must fear your parents, but always keep Shabbos. So if it contradicts, if fearing your parents contradicts with Shabbos takes precedence. However, if we look back at the building of the Mishkan, we see the opposite order, because over there we have the story of Vayakal, the beginning of Vayakal and Kisis and Vayakal. We talk about Shabbos, and then we talk about building the Mishkan. And there Rashi says, why does the Mishkan come in contact with keeping the Shabbos? Because you're not allowed to build the Mishkan on Shabbos. That means if there's a contradiction between the Shabbos and the Mishkan, so the Shabbos take precedence. But over there, Shabbos is first in the Torah, in the pasuk. So which is it? Is what's mentioned first precedent, or was what mentioned second? Like over here, Shabbos is mentioned second. Over there, Shabbos is mentioned first. The Maral in Gurari, the Maral says, you see from here an unbelievable yesod. It's not that one is contradicting with the other, so one takes precedence on the other. If you find a contradiction between the Mishkan and Shabbos, you must find a way that the Mishkan should be fulfilled, should be built, and Shabbos should always keep Shabbos. Shabbos should always be kept. You cannot violate the Shabbos and you cannot stop the building of the Mishkan. How can that be? It's Shabbos. Should we build the Mishkan or not? Build the Mishkan on Sunday. Build the Mishkan on Monday. You must find the compromise. How it's possible that you will not violate the Shabbos and you will also not stop building the Mishkan. You will build the Mishkan and you will keep the Shabbos. How? Find a different day. Okay, there it works out. Now let's look at the situation with our parents. Our parent tells a child, I want you to violate the Shabbos. We're not allowed to violate the Shabbos. We have to keep the Shabbos. But we have to fear our parents. How do we find the compromise there? How do we find a happy median that Shabbos will not be violated and our parents' wishes will be fulfilled? Says the Maral. Over here it's different. The parent's wish is not a legitimate wish. A parent doesn't have a right to go against Hashem. Ani Hashem Elokeichem. So when the parent is asking the child to violate the Shabbos, we look at that request as being non-existent. He doesn't have a right. We always have to fear our parents. If our parents have a request that's a legitimate request, we always have to fulfill it. And we always have to find a way to fulfill it in a way that doesn't violate any of the mitzvahs. And we have to keep the Shabbos, and we have to fear our parents. But in this situation, as if to say the parent doesn't even have a request, we remove the request, and now there's no request. Now what do we have? Only Shabbos, so we keep the Shabbos. What's the difference? What's really the difference? What's the Maral really saying? Unfortunately, nowadays, especially here in Moscow and Russia and other places in America, Baruch Hashem, so many people are coming closer to Torah. People who were not observant 10 years ago or 15 years ago. We see the youth coming back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, coming back to the way of Torah and mitzvahs. Not always does it happen that the whole family becomes religious at once. Very often it happens that the children are becoming religious, the parents are not, and causes conflict in the family. It's a terrible thing, causes strife in the family. The parents don't understand. They want to go out on the Shabbos, they want to go out for a visit, they want to visit their relatives, and the child says, I can't, it's Shabbos, and then there becomes a conflict. So of course, every person has to have a rav, has to have a rabbi who can guide him properly how to navigate this very, very precarious path between not insulting the parents, but also keeping all the mitzvahs of the Torah. But what we see here from the Maral is there's never a situation where we stop honoring our parents, where we stop fearing our parents. Even in a difficult situation where a parent's request contradicts the Torah. So we must listen to the Torah because Ani Hashem Elokeichem, and the parent in this instant doesn't have the right to request a child to go against the will of Hashem. But that doesn't mean that we take the Shabbos and we cancel fearing the parents. We cancel honoring, we never cancel honoring the parents. A child has an obligation 24/7, 365 to always honor his parents, to always fear his parents. In certain situations, we, so to speak, remove the request. The request has been been removed. There is no request. But in the child's mind, the child that was observed, a parent brought the child to the world. In the Gemara compares honoring parents to honoring Hashem. It's the same thing. We honor our parents like we honor Hashem. So we never stop honoring our parents. We never stop fearing our parents. We have to always have the right seichel and the right approach. How to always navigate it. It should always be in a peaceful way. It should be in a pleasant way. The paths of Hashem and the paths of the Torah are always pleasant if we find the proper way. But a person should always remember, a child should always remember, a child has a parent. Kadosh Baruch Hu created a child with his parents. He must always honor his parents, always must fear his parents, and he must always know that overall there's Hashem who runs the world, and He decides which requests are valid and which requests are not valid. But never does a child have a right to say, I am not honoring my parents, I do not want to fear my parents. No, a person always has to find the right way, to do it in the proper way, in a pleasant way, obviously with the guidance of a rabbi, the guidance of a rav who can guide the people properly, the young people, to be able to live in harmony with their parents in a way that doesn't violate the will of Hashem. Good Shabbos.